I'm Danny Anderson, the president of Trinity University. Today is International Women's Day 2018. I want to welcome you to Trinity University and thank you for joining us tonight for this very special evening with the world-renowned novelist Margaret Atwood. Tonight's event is presented by Gemini Ink, San Antonio's wonderful literary arts center. In partnership with the Trinity University Press. Both of these organizations do so much for the literary community in San Antonio, tonight being just one example. I would like to introduce Sheila Black, the Executive Director for Gemini Ink.
Well, coming up to this stage, I saw so many writers, scholars, and thinkers I know, and I think I could safely say that San Antonio has a phenomenal, very supportive, and very united literary community. And there's a few people I want to thank. I want to thank the Russell Hill Rogers Foundation, Humanities Texas, and the National Endowment for the Arts. I also want to thank Bergen, Streetman, Tom Payton, that should go the other way around, Tom Payton and Bergen, Streetman, and Stephanie Mortis of Trinity University Press, who have done amazing hard work to make this evening possible. And you know how these nights work. One person introduces one person and then the next person comes on. Now, I'm going to introduce somebody so popular that I kind of feel the room should burst into applause right when I say her name, and I don't actually mean Margaret Atwood. Dr. Colleen Grissom. Whoa! Who is so witty and funny that the one thing I could say if you're going to give a speech before her or after her is keep it short, because she will outdo you. And so therefore, it is my tremendous honor to introduce my friend who used to hate me for calling her Colleen instead of Colleen Grissom, to the stage to introduce one of the world's greatest authors, someone who really speaks to our dreams, fears, anxieties, and most of all, hopes, Margaret Atwood. A very learned woman. I feel very ill-read whenever I have to talk to her, and I love talking to her, but she's read more than I have. And so has Dr. Grissom, who has a heart of gold and puts up with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheila. I think she may have done the introduction I was going to do, but it's too bad. Call me Colleen. You people, Dr. Grissom, Professor Grissom, rather than that. I have always been starstruck. Growing up in East Texas, I thumbtacked to the wall of my bedroom photos of my idols, most of them from the movies. I so admired them, and I hoped someday to emulate them in my own life. Olivia de Havilland, Rosalind Russell, Johnny Weissmuller. As I matured, and more significantly, as I got out of the piney woods, my idols became writers of fiction that I admired. Remarkably, after I came to Trinity when I was 24 years old, try to vision that, things continued to change for me. Thanks to the generosity of Trinity University, mostly through the Starrin Arts Enrichment Fund, and sometimes through Gemini Ink, and nowadays through the Trinity University Press as well, I spent time with men and women writers whose works were shaping my life. I mentioned just a handful. I spent time on this campus with these people: Saul Bellow, Louise Erdrich, Philip Roth, John Updike, Kurt Vonnegut, who I feel pretty sure was the first person, and maybe the last person until now, to use the word fart on this stage. Joyce Carol Oates, Zadie Smith, Susan Sontag, Toni Morrison, Annie Dillard, Jamaica Kincaid, and on and on. But not surprisingly, of all these luminaries, there was one whose every published word I strived and still strive to read. She was good with plot and character development. She created brilliant, moving, inspiring, and also frequently hilarious prose. And maybe most important for me, this writer wrote about issues about which I cared. She did and does motivate me and inspire me, as I suspect she does many of you. She's won just about every literary award there is, and although from my vantage point she's a mere whippersnapper, she has already, in 2017, received the National Book Critic Circle Lifetime Achievement Award. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming one of the preeminent literary artists of our time, Miss Margaret Atwood. I'm going to pull over here back behind you.
Thank you very much. It was Colleen who made me do this. She makes people do things, and if you know what's good for you, you do them. So we actually have known each other since 1989 because in that year I was here. I was here as a visiting something. And I was also editing the 1989 version of the Best American Short Stories volume. So I did that right here. Tonight I'm going to read to you from two different books with a little bit about what they are. And they are two books that have a couple of things in common. One is they've both been recently made into television series, and the other is they both got bonnets. So one of them is called Alias Grace, and it's set in the 19th century. And the miniseries, 6 episodes, was made by Sarah Polley and stars Sarah Gadden, who does an astonishing performance of the central character, Grace Marks, whom nobody ever knew. They never knew whether she was actually a murderer or not. And that was the part that Sarah Gadden had to play, somebody who either was or wasn't. You just can't tell. And it's based on a real case. It was a double murder committed in 1843 near Toronto. And 2 people were charged with committing the double murder, which was of a landholder called Thomas Kinnear and his housekeeper and also mistress called Nancy Montgomery. And they were found dead in the cellar. And the 2 servants called McDermott and Grace Marks, who was only just 16, ran away to where you would run away to in those days, the United States. It's where you went if you were a never mind. American criminals came to Canada, so it was an even Steven exchange. So they ran away there, but somebody pursued them across the lake in a paddle wheel steamer and caught up with them in Lewiston, and they were brought back and put on trial and tried for the murder of Thomas Kinnear. They were both convicted. He as the murderer, she as an accessory. They were both condemned to death, but her sentence got commuted. And right before he was hanged, McDermott said that Grace Marks had helped him to strangle Nancy Montgomery. We never knew whether that was true or not. Grace ended up in the Kingston Penitentiary with a short stay in the Toronto Lunatic Asylum. That was its real name. And then went back to the penitentiary again and spent the days as a housekeeper in the house of the governor of the penitentiary. So all of that is true. I didn't change anything that was known to be true. So now we're going to hear Grace talking as she is doing some housework in the household of the governor of the penitentiary. Sometimes when I am dusting the mirror with the grapes, I look at myself in it, although I know it is vanity. In the afternoon light of the parlor, my skin is a pale mauve, like a faded bruise, and my teeth are greenish. I think of all the things that have been written about me, that I am an inhuman female demon, that I am an innocent victim of a blackguard forced against my will and in danger of my own life, that I was too ignorant to know how to act, and that to hang me would be judicial murder, that I am fond of animals, that I am very handsome and with a brilliant complexion, that I have blue eyes, that I have green eyes, that I have auburn and also brown hair, that I am tall and also not above the average height, that I am well and decently dressed, that I robbed a dead woman to appear so, that I am brisk and smart about my work, that I am of a sullen disposition with a quarrelsome temper, that I have the appearance of a person rather above my humble station, that I am a good girl with a pliable nature and no harm is told of me, that I am cunning and devious, that I am soft in the head and little better than an idiot. And I wonder, how can I be all of these different things at once? It was my own lawyer, Mr. Kenneth Mackenzie, Esquire, who told them I was next door to an idiot. I was angry with him over that, but he said it was by far my best chance, and I should not appear to be too intelligent. He said he would plead my case to the utmost of his ability, because whatever the truth of the matter, I was little more than a child at the time, and he supposed it came down to free will and whether or not one held with it. He was a kind gentleman, although I could not make head or tail of much of what he said, but it must have been good pleading. The newspapers wrote that he performed heroically against overwhelming odds, though I don't know why they called it pleading, as he was not pleading, but trying to make all the witnesses appear immoral or malicious or else mistaken. I wonder if he ever believed a word I said. And she goes on to look at these scrapbooks that are on the center table. This is the middle of the Victorian era, and scrapbooks were very much in fashion, and autograph albums and all those things. The daughters put all kinds of things into their albums, little scraps of cloth from their dresses, little snippets of ribbon, pictures cut from magazines, the ruins of ancient Rome, the picturesque monasteries of the French Alps, Old London Bridge, Niagara Falls in summer and in winter, which is a thing I would like to see, as all say it is very impressive. And portraits of Lady this and Lord that from England, and their friends write things in their graceful handwriting. To dearest Lydia, from your eternal friend, Claire Richards. To dearest Marianne, in memory of our splendid picnic on the shores of bluest Lake Ontario, and also poems. As round about the sturdy oak entwines the loving ivy vine, my faith so true I pledge to you, 'twill evermore be none but thine, your faithful Laura. Or else, although from you I far must roam, do not be broken-hearted. We two who in the soul are one are never truly parted. Your Lucy. This young lady was shortly afterwards drowned in the lake when her ship went down in a gale, and nothing was ever found of her but her box with her initials done in silver. It was still locked, so although damp, nothing spilt out, and Miss Lydia was given a scarf out of it as a keepsake. When I am dead and in my grave, and all my bones are rotten, when this you see, remember me, lest I should be forgotten. That one is signed, I will always be with you in spirit, your loving Nancy, Hannah Edmonds. And I must say, the first time I saw that, it gave me a fright, although, of course, it was a different Nancy. Still the rotten bones, they would be by now. Her face was all black by the time they found her. There must have been a dreadful smell. It was so hot then, it was July. Still, she went off surprisingly soon. You'd think she would have kept longer in the dairy It is usually cool down there. I am certainly glad I was not present, as it would have been very distressing. I don't know why they are all so eager to be remembered. What good will it do them? There are some things that should be forgotten by everyone and never spoken of again. The governor's wife's scrapbook is quite different. Of course, she is a grown woman and not a young girl, so although she is just as fond of remembering, what she wants to remember is not violets or a picnic. No dearest and love and beauty, no eternal friends, none of those things for her. What it has instead is all the famous criminals in it, the ones that have been hanged or else brought here to be penitent, because this is a penitentiary and you are supposed to repent while in it, and you will do better if you say you have done so, whether you have anything to repent of or not. The governor's wife cuts these crimes out of the newspapers and pastes them in. She will even write away for old newspapers with crimes that were done before her time. It is her collection. She is a lady, and they are all collecting things these days, and so she must collect something. And she does this instead of pulling up ferns or pressing flowers, and in any case, she likes to horrify her acquaintances. So I've read what they put in about me. She showed the scrapbook to me herself. I suppose she wanted to see what I would do, but I've learnt how to keep my face still. I made my eyes wide and flat like an owl's in torchlight, and I said I had repented in bitter tears and was now a changed person, and would she wish me to remove the tea things now? But I've looked in there since many times when I've been in the parlor by myself. A lot of it is lies. They said in the newspaper that I was illiterate, but I could read some even then. I was taught early by my mother before she got too tired for it, and I did my sampler with leftover thread. A is for apple, B is for bee, and also Mary Whitney used to read with me at Mrs. Alderman's Parkinson's when we were doing the mending, and I've learned a lot more since being here, as they teach you on purpose. They want you to be able to read the Bible and also tracts, as religion and thrashing are the only remedies for a depraved nature, and our immortal souls must be considered. It is shocking how many crimes the Bible contains. The governor's wife should cut them all out and paste them into her scrapbook. They did say some true things. They said I had a good character, and that was so, because nobody had ever taken advantage of me, although they tried. But they called him James McDermott my paramour. They wrote it down right in the newspaper. I think it is disgusting to write such things down. That is what really interests them, the gentlemen and the ladies both. They don't care if I killed anyone. I could have cut dozens of throats. It's only what they admire in a soldier. They'd scarcely blink. No, was I really a paramour is their chief concern. And they don't even know themselves whether they want the answer to be no or yes. That is from Alias Grace in the 19th century. And now we come to The Handmaid's Tale, which is in the future. We hope not. We hope it will not be in the future. This book was published in 1985, at which point there were 3 different reactions to it in 3 different major English-speaking markets. In the United Kingdom, where they had had their religious wars in the 17th century, they said, "Jolly good yarn. How entertaining." Fiction. In Canada, in their nervous way, they said, "Could it happen here?" And in the United States, even then, some of them said, "How long have we got?" Some of them said that. Others said, "Don't be silly, Margaret. Such a thing could never happen in this country." Yes. Your Constitution does stand between you and a totalitarianism, but it hangs by a thread. So please don't allow a situation in which your Supreme Court becomes an arm of the government in power, because if it does, you will have a totalitarianism. It's not enough to say the rule of law. The Nuremberg laws were laws. So they have to be just laws. They have to be enforced by a judiciary that's separate from the government in power. And they have to be competently administered and respected. Otherwise, you're not going to be in a democracy anymore. And as you probably know by now, having been glued to the mini-series, actually it's not a mini-series, it's a maxi-series. Having been glued to it, you will know that this book takes place in a theoretical future used to be the United States called Gilead. And a lot of the laws that protect you now are no more. There has been a coup, and your present form of government has been abolished, and you are living in a totalitarian theocracy. So we follow our central character, whose name we don't even know because it's been replaced by another one, as so many people's names have been in history. It was my rule for this book that I would not put into it anything that did not have a precedent in real life. And that is the rule that the writers of the Handmaid's Tale television series are following. And they followed it in Series 1, and they've also followed it in Series 2, which is about to launch in April. And I guarantee you will not have any fingernails left after watching it. They will all be gone. You will have bitten them off. That happened to me even when I was just reading the scripts, so imagine. So I've been very lucky to have had such a dedicated team working on the series. And I'm especially lucky as this could have been a really horrible series. You know, it has all sorts of possibilities for exploitation of kinds that we really would prefer not to have had happened. There was a script proposed earlier on in which in the resistance there are female fighters who go into battle with their machine guns but without their tops on. And I thought, this would not happen. And luckily it did not. So this is page 7. A chair, a table, a lamp. Above on the white ceiling, a relief ornament in the shape of a wreath, and in the center of it a blank space, plastered over like the place in a face where the eye has been taken out. There must have been a chandelier once. They've removed anything you could tie a rope to. A window, 2 white curtains. Under the window, a window seat with a little cushion. When the window is partly open, it only opens partly, the air can come in and make the curtains move. I can sit in the chair or on the window seat, hands folded, and watch this. Sunlight comes in through the window too and falls on the floor, which is made of wood in narrow strips, highly polished. I can smell the polish. There's a rug on the floor, oval, of braided rags. This is the kind of touch they like, folk art, archaic, made by women in their spare time from things that have no further use. A return to traditional values. Waste not, want not. I am not being wasted. Why do I want? On the wall above the chair, a picture framed but with no glass, a print of flowers, blue irises, watercolor. Flowers are still allowed. Does each of us have the same print, the same chair, the same white curtains, I wonder? Government issue. Think of it as being in the army, said Aunt Lydia. A bed, single mattress, medium hard, covered with a flocked white spread. Nothing takes place in the bed but sleep, or no sleep. I try not to think too much. Like other things now, thought must be rationed. There's a lot that doesn't bear thinking about. Thinking can hurt your chances, and I intend to last. I know why there is no glass in front of the watercolor picture of blue irises, and why the window opens only partly, and why the glass in it is shatterproof. It isn't running away they're afraid of. We wouldn't get far. It's those other escapes, the ones you can open in yourself, given a cutting edge. So, apart from these details, this could be a college guest room for the less distinguished visitors, or a room in a rooming house of former times for ladies in reduced circumstances. That is what we are now. The circumstances have been reduced for those of us who still have circumstances. But a chair, sunlight, flowers, these are not to be dismissed. I am alive, I breathe. I put my hand out, unfolded into the sunlight. Where I am is not a prison, but a privilege, as Aunt Lydia said, who is in love with either or. The bell that measures time is ringing. Time here is measured by bells, as once in nunneries. As in a nunnery, too, there are few mirrors. I get up out of the chair, advance my feet into the sunlight in their red shoes, flat-heeled to save the spine and not for dancing. The red gloves are lying on the bed. I pick them up, pull them onto my hands, finger by finger. Everything except the wings around my face is red, the color of blood, which defines us. The skirt is ankle length, full, gathered to a flat yoke that extends over the breasts. The sleeves are full. The white wings, too, are prescribed issue. They are to keep us from seeing, but also from being seen. I never looked good in red. It's not my color. I pick up the shopping basket, put it over my arm. The door of the room, not my room, I refuse to say my, is not locked. In fact, it doesn't shut properly. I go out onto the polished hallway, which has a runner down the center, dusty pink, like a path through the forest, like a carpet for royalty. It shows me the way. The carpet bends and goes down the front staircase, and I go with it. One hand on the banister, once a tree, turned in another century, rubbed to a warm gloss. Late Victorian, the house is, a family house, built for a large, rich family. There's a grandfather clock in the hallway which doles out time, and then the door to the motherly front sitting room with its flesh tones and hints. A sitting room in which I never sit, but stand or kneel only. At the end of the hallway, above the front door, is a fanlight of colored glass, flowers, red and blue. There remains a mirror on the hall wall. If I turn my head so that the white wings framing my face direct my vision towards it, I can see it as I go down the stairs, round, convex, a pier glass like the eye of a fish, and myself in it like a distorted shadow, a parody of something, some fairy tale figure in a red cloak, descending towards a moment of carelessness that is the same as danger, a sister dipped in blood.
About to have a conversation. I hope my microphone is on and yours as well. I think so. I was thinking when you were reading those wonderful passages of which of your publications are you most proud of and why?
Now, Colleen,
Yes?
you know I'm a Canadian.
And you're shy?
No. Canadians are not allowed to say they're proud of things.
I only remember the sex joke you told me from Canadians.
Oh, yes, right.
You-
Let me see if I can remember that
I
one.
can remember it.
Yes. What does a Canadian girl say when you ask her if she'd like to have some sex? She says, only if you're having some
too."
yourself.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Isn't that great? All right. When you talk to Americans who are proud of everything, well, once were. I'm thinking getting a hat that says "Make America Proud Again." Anyway,
Make America America again.
America again. That would be a start.
Go
All
for
right,
that.
we've got to be good. We've got to be good. When you talk to Americans, what do they consider your best work? Which one do they love the most?
Which ones do Americans? Well, it depends which Americans, of course. I mean, there are many different kinds. So if you talk to some of them, they'd say, "Who are you, and why are you asking me this?"
You've been with my friends, I see. Yes, yes.
Or they might say, "We know you are. Get out of town."
What do you like?
But they might say, well, of course, these days they'd probably say The Handmaid's
Yeah.
Tale, but we have Alias Grace with its group of fans.
Right.
And we also have quite a large cheering contingent for the Mad Adam series.
Right.
I'm happy to tell you is now again in the process of being made into a television series.
Wonderful.
How are they going to do that?
I don't know.
I do not know. I don't know.
It's wonderful.
Oh yeah, it's kind of visual.
What about Blind Assassin?
Well, we're also discussing that.
Oh,
They
right.
have actually.
God, you're rich as Midas, aren't you?
Not yet. Not yet. No, the Handmaid's Tale was not my deal as a film thing. The film rights went with the original film in 1989, and then they disappeared into a black hole somewhere. So every time we were asked whether somebody could make it into something, we had to say, we don't know who owns the rights. But they put a detective on it, and they traced it all the way to some secret vault in MGM. Much to their surprise, it turned out to be them.
All right. You got it. You got it.
Yeah, so there you are. So
So
that's
they're
how.
rich.
So they made the deal with Hulu, and the rest is woo. Yeah,
Woo,
they did.
indeed.
Yeah, and Hulu, being small kid on the block
Right.
amongst the streamers, threw everything they had at it, and it's done very well for them.
That's right.
Because the team is terrific. The showrunner, his name is Bruce Miller, had wanted to make this since he was 19.
Yeah.
And he had kept it in his mind all that time, and when the chance came up, he pitched himself very strongly. And he did say, he introduces himself, "Hi, I'm Bruce Miller, I'm the showrunner for The Handmaid's Tale, and I've got one penis too many." So he knew that he knew he had to overcome some, why shouldn't it be a woman? But he hired a lot of women.
Okay.
And the first director, called Reed Morano, who did the first 3 episodes and set the tone, had never directed a feature film before. She'd only done music videos. And she did a fantastic job, and she now is launched on a full-blown directing career. And it has done similar wonders for other people involved in the show. I'll just say a word about the excellent designer. His name is Anne Crabtree, who looked at 50 Shades of Red.
Thank God.
Somebody should write a novel called that. She looked at 50 Shades of Red before choosing the exact right shade. And I think they had about 10 prototypes of that dress before they got it right. So impeccable detail, and everything about the design has had that kind of attention paid to it. You may not have noticed, but all of the pictures in the commander's house are from the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. So what does that tell us? It tells us that, like other totalitarianisms, these people looted the art galleries. They looted the art galleries. And the signatures on the paintings are the only pieces of writing that are publicly on display.
Wow.
So like the idiot that I am, I said, "Oh, wow, did the Boston Museum of Fine Arts lend you the paintings?" And they said, "No, a very nice man in China did them for us at $20 each." So, but it's that level of detail that I love.
We will look more closely and be impressed even more. I'll try it this way. Which of your works are you most ashamed of? Which do you most which do you most regret?
Well, being Canadian, I'd have to say, all of them. I'm so regretful. Let me see. I don't know. I wrote a kind of stupid essay in grade 11. What can I do?
I used to say people that the most difficult interview I ever gave in my life was a conversation. It was called with Annie Proulx. No matter what I said, she said yes, no, yeah.
She's shy.
She's shy. Yeah, she made my life a living hell.
Well, I'm
Let-
not going to do that.
You're not going to do that.
I'm going to cut you off.
I have some wonderful questions you'll treat with respect because they're from the audience. You've won the Booker, Trillium, and Governor's General Award. What would winning the Nobel Prize mean for you?
Oh, it's how does it go? The chalice with the palace is the potion with the poison. This is, it's something you don't want to win until you're really old. What can I tell you? But I have won the Swedish Humor Award. You didn't know there was one, did you?
I did not, but
Neither did I.
I will Google.
I won the Swedish Humor Award, but I couldn't go to Sweden to collect it, so my publishers went and collected it. It was presented in an outdoor stadium. It was raining. It was a large crystal bowl with the Swedish Humor Award written on it, and then somebody stole it. So, although I have won the Swedish Humor Award, I do not have the Swedish Humor Award. But I do have the Dashiell Hammett Award,
Yes.
of which I'm very fond.
Right, yes.
And it is,
That's for Blind Assassin.
yes, it is a beautiful little statuette in the shape of a thin man with he's
yes.
had a little handkerchief in his pocket. And then it has the head of a falcon, so it looks very Egyptian. And I have it on my writing desk.
You still write at a desk? I don't
I
mean
write
still.
on several desks,
Several desks.
yes.
Do you write at the dining table? Do you write in bed? Do you write?
All of those places, yeah.
Do you write on your computer, or do you write
Sometimes,
longhand?
both.
Can you read the longhand once you?
No.
Okay.
You can read some of it. I
Some
can
of
usually piece it together.
Okay.
So
This
my
was-
daughter, whom you remember from a young person, says I used to send her to the store with a grocery list, and it would say milk, butter, eggs. And she'd have to take it to the person.
Do you think this is?
What is this? What do you think?
I don't know why I even continue. What advice would you give to would-be writers of fiction?
What advice would I give to would-be writers of fiction? A couple of pieces of advice. Usually, if they're would-be, it means they're scared of the page.
Yes.
So nobody can read your book until you've written it. Yeah? So if you're scared of the page, just remember, nobody will see this until you choose to show it to them. So you are free. In the moment in which you were writing, you can put anything at all on that page, because if you turn out not to like it, the waste paper basket was created for you.
That's very good advice.
Yeah, so you don't have to be scared of the page, but I'd also say read a lot and read with attention, decide what you like, what you don't like, why you like it, why you don't like it, how books are put together. What is the structure? Because there's a difference between the plot and the structure. And I would also say, because when I teach, which I still do occasionally, teach writing, I only teach the first 5 pages. And the reason for that is this. I want them to live in the real world. So I don't want them to live in a space where they have a writing teacher that just tells them they're wonderful. They may well be wonderful, but in the real world, their book will be in a bookstore. So pretend that you're walking into the bookstore. Close your eyes. You're walking into the bookstore, and there's your book. There's a pile of them, of your book. What color is the cover? A lot of people don't know, but other people do. You should know what color the cover is going to be. So you have a wonderful cover. You're a reader. You walk into the book. There's the bookstore. There's the book. You pick up the book. What happens next? Well, if you're like most people, you open up and read the inside front flap. And the inside front flap will have been written by the most amateur person in the publishing company, namely the intern.
Right,
and
the intern.
Then it will have been sent to you, the author, and you will have corrected the names of the characters, taken out the part where it tells the whole plot, fixed it up.
Yeah.
So let's hope that somebody did that well. The next thing that happens is that they'll probably turn over and look at the back cover, where there will be some snippets of prose of the kinds they used to put on patent medicine bottles. This will cure your cough like nobody's business.
Right.
This is the best book that has ever been written,
Yes.
etc. So you need a few of those. And then the biography should be fairly easy to get through. It should say a few things like, sold nails in well, I guess maybe people don't sell nails in hardware stores anymore.
I don't know.
They come in packets.
Oh, that's true. Yes,
They
packets.
come in bubble-wrapped,
Yes,
sealed
yes,
packets.
from Amazon.
You cannot get open. Yeah. There was a cartoon in the New Yorker years ago that showed Superman for old people. Superman flew in through your window and got your medicine bottles open with the
I could use him.
child locks on them.
Exactly.
Yes, okay. So then you you see the title, and then you start on page 1. And if you cannot get the reader past page 1, that's it. They will never get to page 63, where your most intimate views on the secrets of life are. So you need to get them through the first 5 pages, and that's why I teach the first 5 pages, because agents and publishers are the same. If you can't get them through 5 pages, that's it for your book. If you can get them to page 20, you're doing pretty well. If you can get them to page 50, you're a possibility. But those first 5 pages are crucial. And I give them a lot of good openings from books that are out of copyright. Such as, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times.
Yeah.
For instance, or Call Me Ishmael.
Exactly.
The best, shortest first sentence in a novel. Why is it good? His name isn't Ishmael.
That's right. That's right.
Why does he want you to call him that?
You're hooked.
Yeah, why? So, and also, it's in the present tense, so we
That's right.
know at least he makes it through.
Right.
Whoever else is going to sink on this voyage, at least we're going to have a living narrator by the end of it.
Which could
All
be
of
a
these
big...
things are good, and I also give them Dracula.
Oh, yeah.
Why is Dracula a good example? You interested in this?
I'm fascinated.
Okay.
Do I look
Dracula
bored?
starts with a boring young man on a train in Transylvania, and he's writing his journal. And he's writing, the scenery is wonderful. Mountains are really high, and the peasants, they seem to eat a lot of garlic. I must tell my wife about this. I'll give her the recipe for goulash when I get home. And we think, we know something he doesn't know. And we know that the name of the book he's in is Dracula.
Ooh.
He doesn't know that. So it's a lot like the Alfred Hitchcock quote in which somebody said to Mr. Hitchcock, how long can you hold a kiss on the screen? And he said something like a minute. And they said, that's an awfully long time to hold a kiss on the screen. He said, yes, but first I put a bomb under the bed. So it's that. You need to interest the reader, give them a hint that something more is going to come. Right. Don't try to cram it all into the first 5 pages. Don't, blow the plot right away, but draw them in through that door and make them want to read on.
I'm going to go home and start my book.
Now I've told you how.
Well,
you
told
start
me how.
By saying, call me Ishmael, and then you just go
can
on
do
from
it.
there.
Call me Ishmael.
Call me Colleen.
Call me Colleen, not Colleen.
Call me Colleen or else.
Or else. I think she's got me. Let me change the subject in my subtle way. Next. If you could require the President of the United States to read one work of fiction, what would that work be?
You're hallucinating. It would probably be Moby Dick,
Moby
bad
Dick.
chance of that. It is a very suggestive book. It's the ship of state. There's a reason why it's called the Pequod. He selected the crew very carefully. The captain is crazy.
Yeah.
And
good work.
And it sinks.
It sinks. So bad. I go to the cards from the audience. Ms. Atwood, my name is Bronte. I'm 8 and wanted to meet you today, but if I don't, I want you to know that your work has raised the ceiling for all of us who want to write. I hope your ceiling is my floor.
Oh.
It's not a question.
Yeah. I hope no abusive parent has been letting this 8-year-old read my books.
Here's another one from them. Can you comment on the PEN International's Women's Manifesto, quote, to silence a person is to deny their existence. It is a kind of death.
Yes, well, PEN International, of which I'm an honorary vice president, is a freedom of expression international organization, and that is their big thing. And they and an organization called Index on Censorship are the go-to places to read about which writers in which countries have been imprisoned, executed, exiled, censored, silenced for political reasons. I got into PEN a long time ago. I first joined Amnesty International in the early 70s because Canada had just had an unfortunate episode in its history in which it enacted something called the War Measures Act, and without a warrant went and arrested a bunch of artists and writers and put them in prison. I was in England at the time, but I was pretty horrified by that. It was to shut down Quebec separatism. Mm-hmm. That's what it was for, but that was the wrong way to do it. So into Amnesty and then into PEN, which was more specialized, and I was asked to head up Canadian PEN in the 80s. There had been a Canadian PEN in Montreal, but because of separatism, it had split into English and French, and there were so few English writers in Montreal at that time that they felt they had to move to Toronto because they'd never built out and made it a national organization. So I was out of the country and I naively said yes, thinking there was a PEN Canada. And I got back and found out that it was 3 people and some postage stamps. And they didn't have any money, they didn't have an organization, they had nothing. So myself and a man called Eugene Benson put it together. And I raised the money to do that through writing a book called the Candlelit Food Book. The Candlelit Food Book was, I went through Canadian literature and picked out all the passages about food. most of which were pretty nauseating because it was fiction and poetry, and you don't write much about good food. You write about horrible dinner parties and funerals in which everybody ends up hating each other, and those kinds of things. Cannibalism, the sort of thing you put into fiction and poetry. So I arranged them into meals like breakfast.
We know what meals
lunch,
are.
Yeah, well, afternoon tea.
Afternoon tea, I forgot that one.
Dinner and funerals, those sorts of things. Special occasions. Funerals and Christmas things and festivals are good because you can get all the characters together into one room who ordinarily wouldn't be talking to one another. Right. So I put those together and I illustrated it myself because it was cheaper. And I got an agent to pitch it to publishers for no fee. And they auctioned it, and they actually got a reasonable sum of money, and we used that to set up. You interested in this? We set up PEN Canada with it. So that is why I have been involved in it all of these years. And the philosophy is that people in countries that have more freedom of expression should help countries that have less freedom of expression. Right. So hotspots today are places like Turkey where they're shutting down everybody, and it includes journalists as well. Right. Right. There's another organization called Canadian Journalists for Free Expression. So there's ones dedicated just to journalists. People who, young people who don't know this history sometimes want to shut down free expression on campuses because they think it's something the alt-right is hiding behind. Right. But although that is in some cases true, it's a very bad idea to shut it down because that tool will next be used against you. Right. And we know this from all of the other things. From all of the countries in which we have seen this happen. So it is a pattern. Index on Censorship, PEN International, those are the places to go to read about those things.
We should read them. I have one more question because you've got to go sign. This is from the audience, what is the quintessential truth about life that you want us to take away from tonight's meeting? This is not my question. What is the quintessential truth about life that you want us to take away from you tonight?
Shall I say something enigmatic?
Oh, I hope so.
It's a very enigmatic question. I will say, it's not a road, it's a wheel.
I miss Annie Prue.
Would you like me to explain that?
Yes, of course. Please explain that. We have no place to go, nothing to do. Go ahead. We have no schedule. Go ahead.
You're a very naughty person.
I am not naughty. Nobody ever called me naughty.
Well, I'm calling you that now.
Explain your...
Okay, so...
I'll just sit here and drink.
Yes, you got it. So you've heard the expression, the wrong side of history. Mm-hmm. Those are people who think that history is a road. They think it's a road, it's laid out like that, like the yellow brick road to the city of Oz, and that it's only going in one direction, and that is to a happy place where everybody will be happy, virtuous, truthful, and sufficiently rich. Right. But that isn't what history is like. History is much more like the wheel of the goddess Fortuna, otherwise known as Lady Luck in our musical comedies. Luck be a lady tonight.
Luck, I know. I can do a little dance.
Yes. And the Wheel of Fortune, and you can find it if you go onto your browser and look up Wheel of Fortune Visconti deck tarot. The Visconti deck was made by the Countess of the same name for a friend of hers who is known as Saint Guglielma in Italy. She's not really a saint, but she's sort of a people's saint. People decided she ought to be a saint. Why? She started a gender equal religious organization in the Middle Ages. And weird.
Weird.
Yeah, weird. That's what the Inquisition thought. So she was on their list. And she got up to the top of a hill above Lake Como. And the person who showed me this place said the Inquisition people were too lazy to climb the hill. So she got away with it. And she was a friend of the Countess Visconti, who created the Visconti deck for her. And that's why that tarot deck contains a card called the Female Pope. It's in honor of Saint Guglielma. But you will see the Wheel of Fortune, and the goddess is turning it. And on the left-hand side of it, people are ascending. And on the top, there's a person wearing a crown, hit the jackpot. But on the other side, they're falling off it, because it turns, right? And underneath, they're being crushed.
Oh, yeah.
So that is much more like what happens to positions of power in this world. Witness the French Revolution. Heads roll. And that's why revolutions are called revolutions, because it's the revolution of the wheel. So it doesn't arrive at a place where everybody's happy and wonderful. It doesn't arrive at the city of Oz. It arrives at replacement of power positions, that some people replace other people. And it's not necessarily in the direction of what we think of as progress, as you have just seen in this country. So you can go forward and you can go back. And you can have periods of change where things seem to be becoming more equal, and then you can have pushbacks and blowbacks. And I don't know about you, but I've lived through 3 of them.
4.
In my life, 4.
Elderly, young.
Okay, let's see which they are. I would say the 50s right after the war is one. The 80s is another. And what's I would say the 1930s.
Yes.
That was partly economic. So you get the vote and then you have the Depression. What's the 4th?
I forgot.
You forgot, yeah, me. It'll come back to you.
In the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night.
I'll call you.
So that is why when you have something, for instance, like a great big women's march, you then want to try to make structural improvements, because if not, the moment passes and back you go.
It's not just a happy road.
It's not just the happity-skippity road.
It's the wheel.
It's the wheel. The wheel can roll along the road, mind you.
Yes, indeed.
So it's not all bad news, but it's not inevitable good news either.
Well, I'm pretty damn depressed.
Well, you always knew that anyway. I'm not telling you anything you didn't know.
I guess so.
Yeah.
Well, you have things to do and places to go, and I have animals to feed. And you need what?
Books to sign.
Books to sign. I would just say, in passing, you're the most remarkable of people, and your books are magnificent. Live forever and write even beyond that.
Uh-oh. Careful what you wish for.
In the last decade, more than 600 migrants have lost their lives in Brooks County due to dehydration and exposure to the elements.
As engineering students at Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas, our team was able to apply the skills we learned to help find the best solutions to this problem.
Working with the South Texas Human Rights Center, we designed a water station that helps migrants find clean water.
Seeing the immediate impacts of our work in the field has been an incredible experience.
Follow the path that empowers you to be your best self. Surround yourself with people who embrace your quirks, who don't settle, who seek a life without regret, who know how to win, but aren't afraid to fail. Be part of an elite network with those who know what success is all about. Be brave enough to have a fulfilled life. Trinity University. Discover, grow, become.
Food insecurity or the inability to get food is a widespread and misunderstood problem.
At Trinity University in San Antonio, Texas, Autumn and I are part of a research team in the Food Matters Lab.
Being able to connect with the community and affect policy as an undergraduate researcher at Trinity has been an unforgettable experience.
Being first-generation college students, the ability to research has given us the ability to explore our individual passions and apply them not only to this research, but life after college.